Hello and welcome back to the Christian Century YouTube channel. I am John, and I'm joined today by Melissa Burlock, who wrote a piece recently for the magazine, Hair Like Wool. We are going to be discussing that piece today. But first, Melissa, welcome. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you, John. Thanks so much for inviting me. So my name is Melissa Burlock. I'm a nonprofit writer and researcher based in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm also the co-author of My Divine Natural Hair, Inspiration and Tips to Love and Care for Your Crown. So that's a little bit about
Very
me.
cool. Very cool. A
Yeah.
book that you also wrote with your mom and sister, right?
Yes, yeah, those are the co-authors. Yeah.
So cool. Family project.
Yes.
Sounds super fun.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, So in this essay, in the beginning, you talk about your mom's Sunday school ministry, which you participated in as a child, and
Mhm.
we meet some delightful sock puppets in this part of the essay. But I wanted to focus in on, you said your mom had a felt board with
Yeah.
stickers of like Bible characters on it, including Jesus, and that originally that sticker of Jesus was a white Jesus, but that your
Yeah.
mom had taken a brown colored pencil and colored in the skin to be brown. And you really powerfully in the essay talk about how deeply significant this was to you. And I wonder if you could explain to us, some of our viewers probably grew up surrounded by images of white Jesus in church. And I just wonder if you could help explain a little bit about why that was so profound to you to see a Jesus with brown skin.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, I think a lot of your viewers would have grown up in church surrounded by these kind of whitewashed images of Jesus Christ and the disciples. And as an African American, I'm surrounded by those same kind of whitewash imagery, whitewash images too. Even sometimes in Black churches, you can see sort of like this kind of whitewash image of Jesus Christ and just and culture all around you is from nativity sets to to art pieces to stained glass windows to you just are kind of surrounded or inundated with this Eurocentric depiction of Jesus Christ. So and it's sort of it's very psychological. Like you don't even recognize that this is the image that's being it's kind of slowly fed to you and it's getting into your or defining, it's shaping your imagination. So when my mom, and I never forgot this, just kind of shaded in very ever so lightly that sticky image of Jesus Christ, that was just so important to me because what that communicated to me was that I could see myself, or I see myself as being made in the image of God. So it really went to seeing myself as an image bearer, right? Being able to see a Jesus with skin color that was similar to mine just affirmed the fact that I belong to the faith that I was brought up in, and just it communicated to me that I was a creation, I was a created being, and that I was made in the image of God. So just by her just doing that simple act of coloring in, just sort of that sticky, it communicated all of that to me. Or I think as I got older, I realized that's what my mom was doing, was teaching us that we can identify with the God who created us. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Um, I think one of the main things you're doing in this essay is helping us think about times when hair has been described as being like wool. And you
yes,
take us to some really, painful parts of US history where white
mm-hmm.
enslavers used those kind of analogies to talk about Black people's hair to dehumanize them. But then on the other hand, you also take us to some of the biblical texts where God's hair is being described as being like wool, or the beloved woman in Song of Songs. And you say, still today there is these oppressive Eurocentric beauty standards that are being used to tell people who's beautiful and who's not. And I wondered if you think that reflecting on the biblical texts and the way that the Bible talks about hair being like wool for God, could that help us as we interrogate these beauty standards, push back against them? I'm just curious if you think there's helpfulness today to look back on these texts about God's hair and the woman in Song of Songs.
Yeah. Yes, I do. It's funny because the idea for this article came out of doing research for our book. And one of the sections that my mom and sister and I have in the book is one titled "Reflections to Find the Divine in My Natural Hair." And one of the concepts we came up with while writing, in order to just explain what we were doing, is a concept called hermeneutics, which is just a play on words. So, and we define hermeneutics as the principle that God created kinky, coily hair for His glory, right? So that was the section on finding the reflections in my natural hair. It was really encapsulating that hermeneutic. And one of the, just in doing research for that section, one of the, or some of the verses that really stood out to me, or what you just said, the verses in Daniel and Revelation that describe God's hair texture as being like wool or like pure wool. And just thinking of how describing God's hair texture as wool, or describing the maiden in Song of Songs, her hair texture as wool was a signifier of beauty, of divinity, of just gorgeousness. Of it was a romantic type of descriptor, and just juxtaposing that with how the word wool was weaponized during slavery to dehumanize us, to dehumanize Black men and women for our hair texture, to parallel us with animals, and holding that up against the Bible and how the hair texture of wool is ascribed to God's own hair, is parallel with beauty, and with image bearer, with being an image bearer of God. So I think it is useful and really necessary to go back to the Word of God as the foundation for how you feel about yourself, how you feel about even your intimate features, like the texture of your hair and the way it grows out of your scalp, because God is the one who created that on purpose, who created those features on purpose. And we talk a little bit about in the book, and I mentioned some of this in the article too, about how God isn't made in my image, I am made in His. And because of that, I want to base my self image and what I feel about myself on what God says, especially within a society in which straight hair is still quote unquote good hair, in which straight hair is still pedestalized, in a society in which even wearing natural hairstyles can get you in trouble with your school or with your job. And so we're still facing hair discrimination and oppression today. So it's still important to affirm yourself and to base your identity on what's eternal. And again, I keep going back to this concept of being an image bearer, because just going back to that picture of God in the Bible with hair like wool and with hair texture that's like mine, affirms a feature of myself that's very intimate to my own identity, and is one that I need to affirm within a society in which I still face discrimination based on just wearing my natural hair. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for giving us the word hermeneutics. That's a fantastic play on words. um, so near the end of the article, you make an observation that it's your sense that many white people, when they think about God, when they imagine God, that they're seeing imagery in their mind of a white person. And because God isn't a white person, that would be an idol that they're thinking of in their mind. And you say, on the other hand, your sense is that most Black people, when they're imagining God, aren't thinking of visual kind of images at all. And you said that you don't think of any physical features or characteristics when you imagine God. And so I just wondered if you could share with us a little bit of what do you um, focus on? What's happening in your mind, in your heart, when you reflect on God?
Right. So I love this question. So, I we were talking a little bit before we started recording of the photo, the artwork that was paired with the article, and how much I loved it, and how she really captured this sort of ethereal, majestic feeling of God on His throne. And I think when I pray, in my mind, I'm not thinking of someone with specific features. I mean, I don't know what Jesus, the historical Jesus, really looked like, of course. And I'm actually happy for that because I don't want a physical image in my mind. And I think what's in my sense when I pray or when I think of God is really his characteristics. I kind of think of how when Moses wanted to see God, God kind of hid him in the cleft of the mountain and he just sort of passed by. And then I think when he uncovered his hand, Moses just saw kind of like this trail of glory, of glory sort of following God, almost like this train. So I think of that. I think of this feeling of glory, of majesty, of just thinking of the character of God, how much like that he sees you, he loves you, he created you, he intimately knows you, he knows your thoughts. He's the God who sees you even when no one else sees you, and he's the God who goes with you wherever you are in your life, whether that's just physically in the space you're in, what mental space you're in, what emotional space you're in. So I just think of his character, and then that just creates the feeling. So I mean, I was kind of thinking of different. I don't think of anything specific, even like different colors or facial features. It's just thinking of the character, or even just the beautiful imagery of God just being overshadowed by his wings. So, and or just thinking of outer space or something. I don't think of something that's contained within a face, even though I know that Jesus Christ uh, was a man, was human. So, but I definitely think of I think what I get is a feeling, and I want to do that because I want to worship the God who made me, who I was made in the image of, and not worship something that was sort of a representation uh, or something that looks exactly like myself. I want to imagine someone who's bigger than me, and that takes some imaginative work to do that. So,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Gosh, I mean, I feel like there's so many themes here in this essay. We could talk about this all day long, but I think this has given us a lot to think about, a lot to reflect on. So thank you for sharing. In the video description below, anyone out there who's interested in more, if you missed this article, we'll have the link below where you can read the article Hair Like Wool. We'll also have the link below where you can learn about and order Melissa's book, My Divine Natural Hair. Thanks so much for chatting today, Melissa. It's been great to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been great to chat with you too. Thanks so much, John.